That's it. Good evening. Thank you everybody for coming. I'm Randy Douglas, the Town of Jay Supervisor and the Essex County Board of Supervisors Chairman. Can everybody hear me okay? We're going to share this microphone back and forth. With us tonight, I have Mike Mascarenas from the Essex County Community Resources Department, County Planning Office, Lynn Donaldson from the Essex County Community Resources Department, the County Attorney Dan Manning, our CRZ Zone Co-Chairperson Scott McDonald, Town Board members Amy Shelton, Archie Debo, and Tom McDonald is here. He's here somewhere. First of all, I'd like to start out by saying that we are getting closer. It's been a long 2 years, frustrating process for the Town of Jay and all of you and all of Essex County members. Over these 2 years, there's been many projects: sewer, water, youth facilities, individual assistance, you name it, we've been through it, and it's been trying times. But we never lost sight of the property acquisition program. After Irene hit, it was first public safety, making sure that people were out of harm's way, and then the state and federal government, we reached out to have a program here a little over 2 years ago, or a little less than 2 years ago, to explain the property acquisition program. At the time, we said that it would probably be around 2 years. Well, we're close to that 2-year mark. We have passed the 2-year mark of the anniversary of Irene, but we are getting closer. And I know you're frustrated is just as much as we're frustrated. But there are some positive things that have come out of this. Usually, on a property acquisition buyout program, it's usually only the 75% of benefit of pre-flood appraisal. So, after numerous attempts to work with the state government, Governor Cuomo came through, the state senate and assembly and approved the extra 25% for state funds to make it 100% of appraised value pre-flood. So that's something that's positive throughout this time frame. We've asked numerous times to get lots of paperwork. Mike and Lynn have worked extensively getting paperwork. Every time new funding comes in, like this extra 25%, it means more paperwork that we're requesting from you. I would say that we're getting very close. I do want to say that I spoke to Rick Lower, Marlene White today from the State Emergency Management Office. Anybody that has been flooded from Irene, Sandy, or Lee in New York State, nobody has closed on a piece of property yet. So we're still way ahead of the game in comparison to other communities that it's Schoharie County. And so I know it's frustrating. We are going to go through this process tonight. We're going to do a PowerPoint. Dan Manning's here to go over some legal obligations. We're going to be available here to answer any questions afterwards. And if you want to talk about your individual property and where we're at in that status, we will be able to do that also, Mike and Dan. I will say that we are getting close. It's there's some things that will need to be cleared up. There's some we're planning on doing it in phases. And the phases, out of the 40 some odd properties that we're going to be doing the property acquisition program, there's some that have liens against the properties. Dan's going to get into the legal obligations regarding that. There's some that have receipts that they still need to turn in, maybe some liens, some sort of things that haven't made it totally clean yet. So what we're going to need to do is reach out to people to ask for more materials so we can make this a smoother transition. But for those who are clean, so to speak, for lack of a better word at this point, we will be moving forward with 5 or 6 properties at a time. Our plan is to start closing on some of these properties this fall, October, November, and I'm not sure if once the county takes ownership and in turn turns it over to town, I'm not sure if we're actually going to do demolition this fall or this winter. We're hoping to maybe do some of them, but by spring, our intentions is to have all the property acquisitions program complete and the tear downs completed. Now, I will tell you, the guidelines are strict. There's state and federal regulations that us as a town or county have no control over. Paperwork has been unbelievable, as Linda and I were just talking about a little while ago. It's amazing what they ask for. But you have to remember, and please realize that this is a federal program with 25% match from, or contribution from the state of New York. But we have had appraisals done on all your properties. The appraisals came back, you've been notified of the appraisal. People had the opportunity to appeal that appraisal if you were unhappy with that. And then what happens at the end of the day, either a third appraisal is done or there's a compromise that CMO and FEMA agreed to with us on the average of the two. Some have went that route. There's a couple that did the appeal, others were satisfied. Now, if you had flood insurance, it's the same pot of money. It's the National Flood Insurance Program. So if you receive flood insurance funds that are over the assessed or the appraised value that was done most recently, at this point, they're telling us there will be no additional funding to anybody that received flood insurance funding to cover their homes or their contents. But if you have receipts that you utilize and put back into your home to try and live there, that can go back into the pot to look at that, to make an offer. We're waiting for all the offers to come through. Some of them did come through that we're looking at. We're just getting the numbers. We've been working with the state the last couple of weeks. We got some numbers today. But there are some are in the situation that the appraisal is lower than the dollar amount that you got from the National Flood Insurance Program. If that is the case, at this point they're telling us there will be no further award to a flooded resident. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Mascarenas. Mike has been a godsend during this whole thing because of all the other things that we've dealt with in the town and county from Irene. We needed a go-to guy on a day-to-day basis, and Mike has been that go-to guy. We're in contact day and night, every day about this, and fire departments, and everything else that affects our recovery from Hurricane Irene. So, with that said, I will give you Mike Mascarenas, the Community Resources Director, Essex County Planning Office. One last thing before I do that. There's been some comments or questions recently about what can happen with a property buyout. Back in 1998, from the November 1996 flood, there was approximately 23 homes in the town of Jay that were bought out. There are strict guidelines, and matter of fact, we have broken one of those rules. You cannot put a permanent structure on any of these property buyouts. You can't put something that, you can't put a fence up. We ran into this, and I've appealed it. The basketball courts down in the Grove, put a basketball court in and put a fence around it. FEMA says you can't have a fence. They come and reevaluate the property every 2 years. They take pictures and they tell you what you can do and what you can't do. Right before Irene hit, they told us we had to take the fence down. I told them we weren't going to take the fence down, we were going to appeal it. And went to Senator Schumer, we were appealing that, then Irene hit, and they left it all alone. But the problem with that is, some of it doesn't make sense. Government doesn't make sense sometimes because you've got a basketball court and a road going by, and if your kid's playing basketball, you don't want them to chase the ball on the road and get hit by a car. So a lot of these guidelines that FEMA has, federal guidelines, don't make sense, and we've appealed some of them, so it's better for the community. I know that there's some folks in Upper J that want to slide and swing sets and those sort of things. We are talking about that, but we don't actually have ownership of these properties yet, and we have not found any property that we found that was deemed safe enough to put a playground yet in Upper J. Now, we do feel that we possibly could put one on a few of the locations that would be your former properties in Upper J when we get to that point. I just want to clear that up. We don't actually actually have ownership to these properties. We have looked at putting a couple swing sets and slides up in Upper J and continue to work on that possibility. So with all that said, any questions that you may have, please, at the end of the night, we'll be here and answer any questions that you have. There may be questions that we can't answer, that we're going to need help from State Emergency Management Office or FEMA. And we'll be glad to research them. It's been trying to, times to try and follow all these guidelines and be able to share this information with you, because the last thing we want to do is give you false information. So, with that said, it's now my pleasure to give you Mike Masker as the County Community Resources Director and Planning Department Director. Mike.
Thank you, Randy. I'm sure everybody here knows Mr. Douglas's work ethic, but I got to tell you, I've never really got the opportunity to work with someone that works as hard as Randy Douglas does. It's day and night. It's 11 o'clock at night. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. When my phone starts buzzing, my wife says, "That's Randy." I said, "Yeah, that's Randy." There's no doubt about that. You're welcome. I know this has been a long, frustrating process, folks, and it has for us as well, as Randy has said. We really appreciate you guys coming tonight. We appreciate your patience and your resiliency. When I came to Jay here a couple years ago and we first started this process, this very room was just mobbed with individuals and people that cared about their community and wanted to help each other out, and that hasn't changed. You guys are real special people. You're fantastic. I appreciate the opportunity to do my little part of helping you guys out. Tonight I'm just going to go through a quick PowerPoint that we made. It's not going to be long. I'm not going to visit where we were. You know where we were. You know where I'm going to tell you about where we're going, hopefully, and in a short period of time. This night's about you guys. It's your opportunity to ask us some questions. We wanted to spend a little bit of face time in the community. I know you've received a lot of correspondence from us, and we wanted to come visit and see how everybody was doing and give you a chance to ask us some questions that maybe you're thinking about and haven't had the opportunity to pick up the phone and give us a call. So hopefully we'll be able to get some of those things accomplished tonight. Where are we? Well, since we've met last, we do have all of our applications approved, and we've completed abstracts of title on everybody's property. We had to go out and hire a firm. And when you do anything with government, it does take some time. You know, we have procurement policies we've got to meet. So we've got to put it out, and then when it comes back, we have to award that to the lowest responsible bidder, then they go out and do all the work. So part of the reason why things can be slow are those things. There's a lot of rules we have to follow. Surveying. I know I got calls from a lot of you recently. You said, "Hey, there's people here, there's markers in my yard." Well, those are the survey crews that we have out for all the properties right now. And if you have markers in your yard, that's because we have to mark the corners of each property that is going to then be turned over to FEMA after this process is complete. About a month ago, we turned in the receipts that you guys put together for us, and the attempt of putting together all those receipts was to try to up the offer that you may get from the federal government. As Randy stated earlier, individual assistance, insurance, those types of items get counted against you on your final offer. But if you were able to provide us with documentation that showed us that you put some of that funding back into your home so that you could live there, then that would increase the offer that FEMA will provide you. So right now the state is actually reviewing the receipts that you submitted to us. We then submitted to them to determine final offers. We have had a couple come in, like Randy said. We're expecting more to come in any day, and I think that process is going to really start moving. A ban. Randy asked that I touch on that briefly. Because the process has been somewhat slower than we would have liked, and Randy would have liked, and Mr. Farabee and Mr. Manning would have liked, the county put their best faith efforts forward and agreed to issue a ban for the project. Now, what that means is a ban is a type of borrow. So the county's going to borrow money to get us started so that we can once we get that final offer approved from the state, we can then start doing these closings because we have the money to do so. So the county has done that, and that's a good thing. Final determination. Randy talked about that a little bit. Final determination is going to be made this way. We're going to look at your appraisal. We're going to look at any funds you receive from either individual assistance, insurance, and that will be deducted. In some instances, like Mr. Douglas said, if you receive more than what your final appraisal was, then there will be no offer to buy out your property. Randy's absolutely right. It all comes from the same pot of money. The insurance is FEMA, it's federal. So that's why they won't let you basically, they call it double dipping. Okay, final determination. For a property to receive 100% of appraised value, they couldn't have received insurance or individual assistance, and their properties are primary residence. We have quite a few of those. There were some people that got absolutely nothing. Those closings are a little more cut and dry to determine a final price offer. That's not that difficult. So those will go a little bit quicker. Again, deductions will be made in the final offer for money received for insurance or individual assistance. Okay, and this is where it starts to get a little bit confusing. A property will only receive 75% if it is a rental property with 4 or more units. If there's less than 4 units, then they qualify for 100%. It's just subtle nuances in the programs and the requirements that Greg said. They don't always make sense, but we're forced to follow. And again, I already said this, if the individual receives more money in insurance and or individual assistance than their home is worth, they'll receive no offer. Second homes don't qualify for 100%. Now, your definition of a second home, my definition might be something different, but this is what CDBG says is a second home. They're the team that's picking up the 25%. Second home is not rented out at any time during the year. It is a second home regardless if it is used by the household or not. If a home is rented out part of the year and the owner uses the home more than 14 days, then 10% of the number of days during the year that the home is rented, then it is a second home. I know it's confusing, right? Some people shaking their head. And I took this verbatim from what they gave us, just so you would have it exactly the way I had it. If a home is rented out for part or all of the year, and the owner does not use the home long enough as defined above, then it is a rental property and not a second home, which that's the great majority of the properties we have. There's not a ton of second homes. If your property falls within any of the above categories, you are not eligible for the additional 25%. Fair compensation form. Dan, can you zoom in on this a little bit? The fair compensation form is you'll be getting from Mr. Manning's office once the process gets to that point. We're getting close to that now. What I wanted to show tonight, this is what it's going to look like. So when you see this come in the mail, that's good news. It means we're getting really close to the end here. In this scenario, we have a $125,000 appraised home. $66,000 has been deducted to avoid duplication of benefits via individual assistance or insurance. That would give you the final offer of $59,000. So that's how it's figured, okay? Yeah, this is John and Mary Dell. So I just want you to understand that that's how that's going to work out in that scenario. You want me to go back a slide, David?
Okay, that's only if you have insurance.
Excuse me, sir?
If you have insurance, right?
If you have insurance or individual assistance, that's correct. That's the deducted amount. So the difference between your appraisal and if you had $66,000 insurance, then you would get offered $59,000. And at that time, you would decide whether you want to accept that offer, decline that offer. That's up to you at that point. Okay.
Excuse me.
Oh, you got another
individual, whatever that word was, is that FEMA?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Offer to sell, this is another form that will come from Mr. Manning's office. Those are basically the final two steps. And Mr. Manning also has some requirements that he's going to talk to in a little bit. But the offer to sell, this is that same property, John and Mary Doe, 125,000 was the appraisal, they dug to 66, and there's the 59. So it's similar to the other farm, but we're required to supply both. So those are really the last two things that you're going to be seeing from us in the mail. At this point, it's a real individual process. It's not like every property is unique. When we first came here, all the questions and answers were very general. And we've gone kind of past that into a more unique situation for each person.
What kind of time frame between those two forms coming?
They're coming together. Those two are going to come together.
Okay.
Yep. Now here's the bad news. Now, with every good thing that happens, is kind of makes for a little more work, a little more time consuming. Thursday afternoon, we received these forms that we've been bugging the government for a couple of weeks now, and they're income verification forms. Now the good news is, in order to receive your 25%, income's not relevant. They're simply collecting it because they have to. Yeah, they want to be able to look through their programs, make sure that their programs are working for people, but they're not going to determine eligibility with the income you put on there. Now, we have been going back and forth, and we've gotten some mixed messages about these forms, who needs to fill them out, who's required. So what I'm going to tell you tonight is that anybody who lived in your household or lives in your household today that's over the age of 18, fill out the form. That way I don't come back to you in 2 weeks because only one person in the household did it and say, oh, now so-and-so's got to fill it out, so-and-so's got to fill it out. It may be a little extra work on your part, but at this point, I really want to be conservative. I want to have everything in place that we need to do and try to anticipate anything that could possibly go wrong and have it prepared ahead of time. Every one of you was handed out a packet when you got here. In those packets, too, I want to speak to the fair market values. A couple of you have brought that up. They're incorrect. Those were assessed values. We were rushing today when we got the forms. We wanted to fill them out for you the best we could, so you didn't have to fill out a lot, and so we simply screwed it up. So we make mistakes too. That form's incorrect, we'll fix that part. Not a big deal. Okay?
Can I just ask, so what is that income verification for then? Why are
The
we?
income verification, the funding stream that's picking up the 25% is HUD. HUD has several income guidelines in order to qualify for their programs generally. They're not making us meet those income guidelines in order to receive their funding, but they're still required by federal law to report income on people that receive their funding. So we're required to collect it. It is an extra hoop we got to jump through, but that 25%, trust me, makes an enormous difference on your final offer. It takes a house, because originally you were not going to get 75% of your appraised value. You were going to get 75% of the total project cost on your property. There was a little misunderstanding about that. Now you're going to get 100% of your appraised value, minus any funds you receive. That 25% makes a big difference. If you would have had a $100,000 house, your offer would have been about $67,000 before that 25%. Now that offer is going to turn into $1,000. So it is a big difference. It's a hoop that I hope most of you are willing to jump through. I understand people, feel uneasy sometimes about filling out that information. I wish we didn't have to require it, but it is what it is.
That's great news. Who pays for the demolition costs? How does that happen?
We do. At the end of this, Dan, if you want to go on to the last slide, I think. Okay. The demolition and site restoration is going to be picked up by the county at the end. We do get reimbursed by FEMA for that cost. Once we buy the property from you, the property's in the the county's hands, and then our project still continues, but at that time, hopefully you remain as whole or as close to whole as possible, and you can move on with your lives. I know it's been a difficult 2 years for a lot of you, and fielding a lot of your phone calls, I know it hasn't been easy, so this is good news, we are getting closer, but we're going to take care of the demolition and safe restoration of those properties. And the closing, a lot of questions we've had about that right recently. Do I have to, when do I have to be out? You have to be out at closing. Now, we could work with you a little bit, and I'm sure Mr. Manning would be willing to do that if there's a situation that arises where you have no place to live, we might be able to push your closing back to one of the later closings. But once we get rolling, we got to meet the time frame too by FEMA. And we finish by a certain amount of time, so we make sure we get our reimbursements on the monies we spend. So there probably is a little bit of flexibility there, but let us know, okay?
So there's no cost to the homeowner for the demolition?
Absolutely not. No.
And in the past, on FEMA property acquisition programs in New Orleans, I believe, when that happened, it was the cost of the homeowner. This is something that's different than it was years ago.
But the last meeting, FEMA, the guy that spoke said the demolition cost.
Well, that was the point I was making earlier, with that 25%, that makes a bigger difference than people think, because on that $100,000 property, once we figure in closing costs, once we figure in site demolition and restoration, that drives your personal property up to say $125,000 for cost. They then reimburse 75% of that. But there's still the responsibility of tearing down the home, restoring the property, paying closing costs, so it's deducted from that, which you end up with about $67,000 on a $100,000 appraisal. So you really don't get that. That was the whole point that I think Rich tried to say that night, but it is confusing, and I think it fell on some deaf ears, and it just wasn't understanding a little bit. But that 25% makes a big, big difference in being able to make a property on a whole.
So does the town pay the site restoration and demolition?
Absolutely.
Did you do that, Ray?
Well, we asked the governor to help us with that whole process. Now, let me just follow up on something.
I want to go back to the income guidelines. I know people panic because of the income guidelines. Back in February or March, when the governor wanted us to go down, he was going to make the announcement that the state was covering the other 25%. At that time, they didn't say anything about income guidelines. They came back with these forms, and Mike and I panicked because word on the street, the media, the press releases all said we got the extra 25%. Everybody was happy. But when we started seeing these income guidelines, we started to panic and thinking, okay, we misled everybody. But when they looked at it closer, this was the executive staff of the governor's office, when they looked at it closer, they realized that, they made a promise of 25% without the income guidelines. However, as Mike said, with any community development block grant, which this is coming out of this extra 25%, it is actual federal funds that are funneled to the state. Anytime that happens, to get that money, when we do a water project, a sewer project, and we apply for CDBG funds, we have to do an income guideline form for every resident in that water or sewer district. So they're making us do it for their database, for future use, but it will not have an impact on you as your award. That was a good thing. I'm going to give it to, you know, Mike? Yeah. I'm going to give it to Dan Manning. And Bill Farabee just came from the town of Keys, the vice chairman of the Essex County Board of Supervisors, and you got something, Bill? Okay. I'm going to let Bill go and introduce himself. I'm going to give it to Dan Manning, our county attorney, and then we're going to open it back up to questions.
Hi all, sorry I'm late, I really thought it started at 6:30, so I was kind of hard to get here. But anyway, a question for Mike, I've asked Mike this question, and some Mike statements and asked the question. The houses were appraised at pre-disaster conditions.
That's correct.
Okay, so
Yep.
the house still belongs to the owner.
Yes.
If the owner chooses to take some of the material, windows, doors, cabinets out of the house, now, is that going to affect when it comes down to buy?
Well, to be honest, I don't know what the condition of the house is at this time. I haven't been to any of them.
The appraisals were made on existing conditions prior to the flood. Just driving up here, I see many of the houses already don't have windows, doors, and those types of things. So, until we take ownership, I really don't know what those properties have and what they don't have. I guess it's a hard question to answer.
Prior to the closing.
Prior to the closing, right?
How can they come back and penalize if, people have chosen the property belongs to them? The value's been established of what they do, prior to the closing. Because all we're gonna do is tear it down anyway. So, in my opinion, if it's if somebody could reuse some of these products. I mean, we're all into reusing and recycling, it would be beneficial to other people that probably could use some of those. So, it's something we can maybe answer, because I have had that question.
Sure, I've had that question a few times.
Thanks, Ron.
I have a related question. I still have some trees on my property, which I would like to cut down and use the wood. Is that going to affect anything?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Take them down.
I got a saw in the car.
At this point in the process,
Windows and doors.
we're not going to worry about those trees. I can tell you that. You go for it.
You can't cut before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. Only because Linda's property is across from my house.
That house is appraised in the first place. It's not appraised with the contents of the house.
No.
When you get the appraisal value, it's not considered what you have in the house. So I don't think it will have any effect on you, what you take out of the house. Am I right or wrong?
The houses were appraised based on pre-market flood condition. Contents really don't have an effect on an appraisal, and in some instances, they really had a hard time doing it because there was nothing left. So what they had to do was take comparables from sales prior to the storm happening and do the appraisal based on that way. So I guess to answer your question, no, the contents really weren't looked at because some were unsafe to even go in.
When the house is appraised, speculation, so forth, on what you might call value of the resale, possible. So if you take something out of the house, for instance, just recently bought all the money chandeliers and so forth, that I could give to people. Now, prior to that, can I take those out before? Because I'm still paying taxes on the house.
Like I said, I don't know what's in your house. It's not
Take them. Just take them. Take it and run.
It's a good question, Mr. Trumbull, and we appreciate everybody being so honest. But honestly, take the chandeliers. The federal government has more to deal with than just chandeliers, I can tell you that.
Because whatever's left there, sir, is going to be buried on site. Or taken away, whatever we have to do, so, and put it in a trash compactor.
Thank you. Okay, so Dan Manning's up, and we will get back to questions, I promise. I'm sure there's many, many more questions, but Dan wants to talk about some of the legal issues that go along with this. And so Dan Manning, the county attorney.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. I've been asked to speak briefly about some of the legal issues, and just before I get started, I would be remiss. I'm not big on butt kissing. I don't want this to sound like a mutual admiration society, but we really do need to recognize the efforts of Mike Mascarenas, Randy Douglas, and Bill Federico. And I don't say that lightly. When Mike had made mention of the ban, very few counties or municipalities would stick their neck out to go borrow over $800,000 by means of a ban and use county money to help get this process started ahead of time. And the impetus behind that came from these three gentlemen. As county attorney, I scratched my head and didn't think it was a great idea because I was aware that maybe FEMA might not pay us. But they're going out on a limb to help you out in that respect, and they should really be commended for that. Additional things, Randy has been on everybody to get things moving. Mike's worked day and night on this thing. I've done very little at this point. I know the process, but I'm not looking for any credit. So really, they do deserve a great amount of credit. Basically, when you get through the entire process and you received your letters verifying that a certain amount of money is going to be allotted to you to be able to purchase or to be able to sell your property. Mike made mention of the statement of determination of fair compensation and the offer to sell. There's going to be a bottom line figure on each of those documents that says this is what you're going to get. In many instances, that's not going to be your bottom line. Your bottom line will be that figure, less any unpaid taxes that you owe the county, less a mortgage you may have on the property, less any liens you may have on the property. You may have a federal tax warrant if you haven't paid your taxes. You haven't, as a business, haven't paid your withholding taxes. There may be estate tax liens that weren't cleaned up. There might be estate problems that might have been. So your bottom line, there will be some deductions. I'm not going to say they'll be great. I'm not going to say everyone will get one. But there will be deductions from that bottom line in the forms that I want sent to you. What you will receive from my office are the forms Mike has prepared, together with a contract of sale that I'll prepare, which will just bind us so that we know that you're going to sell and we know we're going to purchase. I'm also going to send you a copy of your abstracts of title so you can see which kind of shape your title is in. I'll also have a form letter, and on the form letter I will check off what title problems you may or may not have. Principal amongst these is going to be a mortgage. Lots of people have mortgages and they're still sitting on those properties, and we cannot purchase your property unless you take care of that mortgage. The process will be, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get me the mortgage information, who your mortgagee is, the address, and the telephone contact person. I would like that information, but it's going to be incumbent upon you to contact your mortgage company and tell them, listen, this is what's happening. And there's going to come a time when we're going to ask for a payout letter and a per diem, which will be delivered to me just before closing. And when we close, I will give you a check less your mortgage your mortgage obligation, which will be sent directly to your mortgagee. Now, I can't do this for you, but it would be a good idea if you contact your mortgage companies and try to negotiate down your mortgage. It's worth a shot. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but if you or if you have someone who's savvy in this department, they could maybe talk down your mortgage company by saying, listen, you got nothing there. Could you take $10,000 off? And it's worth a shot. Most mortgage companies won't do it, some. So there are going to be these liens, there are going to be the mortgage. Those are all things that will have to be taken care of prior to closing. When we get to closing, I'll have prepared all the paperwork. You won't have to prepare anything. If you have title problems or estate problems or things of that nature, I would recommend that you go to a lawyer and ask him to help you to take care of it, so that if you want the process to be streamlined, they'll be able to help you. I'd love to be able to help you, but I can't help all of you and do it in a timely fashion. It's kind of a conflict too if I, like even if I were to call your mortgage company, you might get mad at me and say, I only saved $85 on my mortgage, and you saved somebody else. Okay? So when you get the letter from me, you'll know whether you're going to need a lawyer. If it's just a minor thing, no problem. Feel free to call me. I'll be able to say, you might want to get some help on this. I've seen some of the titles, and there are some holes in some of the titles. I know most of these properties. I've worked on these properties when I was in private practice, so I know the titles show the holes, but I know in my mind there are no holes. Most of them don't have holes. Examples, a minor example would be if there were a life lease on a piece of property, that life lease needs to be extinguished in order to sell, or that lessor needs to sign on. Well, I know when I saw some of these titles, that person's dead, but in order to fill the hole, we need a death certificate. So I'll ask you to obtain a death certificate for your loved one and give it to me. Let's see. As Randy indicated, or maybe Mike indicated, we're going to try to close these things in blocks of 6 or 7, and I anticipate the first batch will be later in October. Then we'll do November and December, and hopefully we'll be all set. I don't know if any of you have renters or anything that's leasing your property. Probably not, but in that case, you're going to want to begin proceedings to give them a 30-day notice ahead of time, if you have a month-to-month lease, or if you have a year lease that allows for 30-day notice. That's something you should be aware of. I think think I did explain to you, you may be behind in taxes. If you're behind in taxes, that will come off your top line. And I'm not sure, this has nothing to do with it. Doesn't demolition have to be done 30 to 90 days after closing?
We have a schedule we gotta meet overall,
Okay.
and, I'll share that schedule with
Okay.
you, but yeah, that, they don't have to worry about that.
No, that's nothing. And as far as fixtures and things so, you know, we're just going to demolish the property, so we'll thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Questions? Mr. Trump?
Program anywhere connected with FEMA who reimburse you for any damage to content in a garage or so forth, whatever it might be. It's only structure and nothing.
That is correct. The insurance program is the only other one. That's
It has to be structured.
yes. Has to be structured.
Yes, sir.
We all had our loss on the same day. Stuff you're talking about, some people closing before others. At that point, the first person being closed, is there some program for taxes to be stopped? Collected on the people who are remaining, because otherwise we're being penalized for having a late disposal.
That's an excellent question. We haven't got it yet. But I'm going to turn that back over to the attorney to look at. But the ones that we're closing out, I want to go back to, so far we've borrowed $800,000. We've been authorized, the board's went along with us to borrow up to $5 million. So we wanted to make this process as fast as we possibly could, where we could use the $800,000 first, pay off those properties, put in for our reimbursement from FEMA to come back. The ones that we're going to do first are the ones that are clean at this point, and we're not trying to penalize anybody that had liens against them. But you made a very good valid point, and I don't know the answer to that. And do you have anything that you can add to that? We can look into it. I really don't. Do you?
Well, the only thing that I could see being problematic with that are the people, you have up until closing to opt out. And so should taxes on property stop, and then a person opt out, that could be problematic, but I don't know. Maybe Dan has a better answer.
Well, hopefully we'll close all properties by the end of December, so there shouldn't be a tax problem. Taxes don't start until January, or land taxes, or school taxes will begin in July, so we shouldn't have a problem in that respect. You know, the ones that we're going to close, the first to be closed will be the ones with the cleanest title. The next to be closed will be those people who have to work on their title, get it cleaned up, and then it'll go that according to that.
Yeah, I understand that. You're talking about some people have had surveys already. I haven't had a survey, so by virtue of picking and choosing, or
There shouldn't be.
this is from the project, I'm the only person down in North Hudson, and I have not had the support that you all have had. It's been very frustrating. I have had none community support. So, I'm just looking for everything I can get.
I don't blame you.
I don't blame you.
But I don't think there'll be any prejudice if we can close them all before December 31st.
That's a good question.
Just ask, what's your name, sir?
Jim McNaughton.
From North Hudson?
I just got a quick question on the closing. Now, in normal closing, when you close on the house, you prorate it for fuel oil and stuff that's in the tank. If I get a full tank and then we get notice of closing, you know, are we going to get as homeowners reimbursed for any of that? Where if somebody was to buy my property, you know, they would have to reimburse us for the amount of fuel that's in the tank too.
That's an awesome question.
I'm not sure how they're going to work it as far as that's concerned, but we'll check that
I will
out.
get that question answered first thing in the morning, Jack.
Okay.
Get that back. That's a great question.
It is a great
I've never thought about that.
We knew there was going to be questions tonight that, you know, when we worked with the state to put the program together 2 years ago to do their PowerPoint, we gave them a bunch of loaded questions to use on their PowerPoint all over the state of New York. because of the questions that you people had that night. So we have made a significant impact on the questions that come forward. And again, tonight, we knew we weren't gonna have the answers to everything, but that's an excellent question. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that whatever the offer is, you're gonna deduct the mortgage. We would have to deduct the mortgage or unpaid taxes from that sort of thing. Obviously, unpaid mortgage is the responsibility of the homeowner. If there are unpaid taxes, would that just come off the offer? I mean, at the time of closing, or do the taxes need to be paid ahead of time before the closing?
It's my understanding that the taxes can come out of your proceeds. And the same would be true with mortgage payment, or mortgage indebtedness. And the reason why we are going to pay it out of your proceeds too is we want to make sure that mortgage is paid off, being discharged if we're going to own that property.
Okay. And are the taxes then going to be prorated, because we're paying for the 2015, 2014 year?
For school?
So if we sell, by December, some of us are, still have.
Still have your school.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that.
It's the same question with the oil and stuff. I think that's a general question we've got to
Those
ask.
are typical things that would happen in a regular real estate transaction, but I don't know about if they're going to be able to, because who's going to pick that? Maybe they will. We'll have to get that question.
We'll have to ask.
Which would change the answer I gave you, the gentleman from North Hudson. See, there's no, that's because there's some private, so we don't have much.
Next question.
I got a few. We've talked about the mortgages and stuff. Now, the liens are a little bit different. The liens, are we going to be responsible for paying them? Or is that on the same line as a mortgage where that might be deducted from the amount of the offer?
You're going to be responsible for, you're actually going to be responsible for paying off your mortgage from the proceeds.
But that's out of what they offer you.
Right, and if there are any liens, yes. I mean, so I've seen a couple of tax warrants on some of the properties, which is IRS or state of New York, where you haven't paid your taxes, or you haven't paid your withholding taxes, or you haven't paid your sales tax. There are a couple of those on some of the properties, so that will have to be paid off. Like I say, if it's $13,000 and you're offered $100,000, then that out of that $100,000, we will deduct the $13,000, pay that taxing authority, and get a release to put in time.
Okay. So, well, I've got some liens. It was grant money from Friends of the North Country and stuff, which is a prorated thing, so we
Yeah, you may not have anything because those work on 5 to 10 year
Right.
increments.
20% every year for 5 years on those.
Depends, yeah, and then it's gone.
Right.
And sometimes you may be able to work with it too.
Well, I spoke with you on the phone about that the other day. Yeah, we need to talk to those folks because there may be certain circumstances where we can work that out. I know several of you, I don't know if any of you are here tonight, were getting harassed for a while by mortgage companies because you weren't able to make your mortgage payment and pay rent at another place. We've sent letters to your mortgage companies. We've had phone conversations with your mortgage companies. And almost every one of you, those phone calls stop. That have called. So I think the mortgage companies would be willing to work with us too. I think they understand that these properties aren't worth the value that the mortgage company originally invested in. And so I think there are the opportunity to work out some agreements with different people at this point.
The ones on the Friends of the North Country, the extra 25% that's going into this program, it's the same program that did those grants on those housing assistant, housing rehab grants. So there might be some leeway there.
Okay. But instead of me having to come up, borrow the money.
It would be a deduct.
No, no one's gonna have to borrow any money to pay
Okay,
off their
that was what I was.
mortgages or.
Well, it's unless it put them
Unless-
negative.
What's that?
Unless it put them negative.
Yeah, but could possibly happen.
Yeah, it would be a deduction, go ahead.
Okay, and then if you decide you don't want to take the buyout, would you ever get help from FEMA again? And like if there was a chance for another buyout, which I don't know, because there still should be some properties left, would you be disqualified because you didn't take it when they offered the first time?
Well, we've asked that question, and they've told us no. But I will tell you that how FEMA operates now compared to what they did 20 years ago is a whole different story. And I guess this is the best point ever to be talking about this. Recently, they're going through all the states that were flooded, and they're redoing all the flood maps. And what they're doing, where let's say somebody in the Jersey section paid $600 a year for flood insurance. I hate to scare some people, but if you want to put in for flood insurance in some of these neighborhoods, they haven't finished ours yet. But I know in some of the other states that they've done it, flood insurance has went up to like $20,000 a year. That's because of the debt that FEMA is in at this time. They have told us if somebody doesn't qualify this time and there's another disaster, that they wouldn't disqualify them. But you have a change of president, you have a change of congressman, you have a change of rules and regulations, so that it's not a guarantee. I wouldn't be able to sit here today and say, yeah, it's guaranteed. If you don't take it this time and you get flooded in 2 years, that you have that opportunity because it's the feds that make the rules on this property acquisition program. And FEMA's broke, quite honestly, from all the disasters that have happened. The only way they feel they can reap more revenue to have for future disasters is to up the flood insurance program, the cost to the individual.
If I could add on to what Randy said a little bit too, receiving that declaration is really rare. That year, I believe you were probably flooded on 3 different occasions, most of you. 2 probably definitely. And it was only the 3rd one where Irene was a devastating enough storm and did enough damage in New York State that you were able to get that declaration that then allowed for this property acquisition program to be enacted. The first 2 times we did qualify for public assistance, but the threshold for that is much smaller on that. Because what they do is they take a percentage of destruction across the entire state. New York State's a very large state. Where Vermont was qualifying for some of these types of programs, we were not, even though they're just right across the lake, and we experienced very similar devastation than what they did. It wasn't until Irene, where the devastation was more widespread across our state, that we actually got that declaration. So I think you need to think long and hard about that part, folks, because it is rare, I mean, that we receive those declarations and meet those thresholds.
Yes, Mr. Cohen.
Speaking of refusing prior to, let's say, I was with FEMA Bank some time ago when they had a flood. I refused it. So when I had, whatever happened. But then this time, they came back. You don't turn me down because that's what people think. If you turn it down once, you're not eligible again. But that wasn't in my case.
That's true.
They came back.
I've actually got his file from 97, I believe.
Yeah, 96 flood.
Which I should have taken it first time.
I'm sure you can,
Mistake I made.
I don't blame you, sir. Further questions? Please don't hesitate. We'll answer them to the best we can. If not, Mike is very good about the very next morning getting an answer because he doesn't sleep at night thinking about it. So, anybody else? Any questions?
Quick question, Randy.
Yep, bro.
Closing, what's typically, when we get to see the time frame of when we receive the notice of to sell, and when we sign it, what's the closing? Is it 30 days, is it 60 days?
I think that's Dan Manning's question.
It all depends on what shape your title's in. You're going to get a letter from me saying, here's what you need to clean up.
Okay.
If you only have a mortgage, it should be relatively quick to do. I would anticipate 3 weeks to a month on the ones that could get right back to us.
The cleanest would be, say, a month.
Yeah, and then the others, depending on, you may wait 3 weeks for a lawyer out in Sioux City, Iowa, or wherever that is, to get back to you discharge a mortgage or some state document or something, so that will delay. So there's no telling what would happen.
Good question.
Yeah, I don't know whether I heard you incorrectly, but originally, if we had insurance, we were told that you deduct the structure or not the personal property. I thought you said personal property was deducted also just now. Was I incorrect? Did I hear you incorrectly?
Incorrect.
Yes. Right. Yeah, no, yeah.
How nice to be wrong.
Sorry. I'm sorry, I might have said it wrong. I'm sorry.
How long do we have to accept?
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to turn that back over to Mike, but you have the option to stay out of the program right up until closing. That's what they're telling us. So, Mike, correct in that?
Yeah, I think Dave Manning and I have spoke a little bit about this, and when we sent you those offer to sells and contract of sale, that's going to come from his office, and step right in there if I'm wrong, because I'm far from a lawyer. Once you sign that paperwork, I think that's going to be a binding contract right then, and then at that point you're in. Am I wrong about that, Dan?
Yes, I mean, generally, you sign a contract, then you're obligated, but if FEMA's rules
Yeah,
are...
I mean, technically, you could back out right till the day you close. At that point, I think once you sign a contract and are looking at a couple weeks with a closing appointment or something like that, you're probably in anyway. I know some of you are still on second thoughts, and that's understandable. House is a very emotional thing for some people. I understand that, but until you get that final offer, you don't really know for sure. But most people, I think, are in good shape with that 25%. It's going to make a big difference to most homeowners.
Randy, on final closing, I have to move when? Then? Immediately?
Yeah,
There's no 30 days.
no. But we'll give you ample
Plenty,
time.
we're going to give you plenty of notice of when the closing is going to be, right?
Yeah,
We're not going to
I have
take
to
down on
We're-
the street.
Yeah, and if you want, as Randy said, if you want to delay it out a little bit, that's fine. I mean, the only reason we're trying to do this is
No.
to make people happy and
No,
get it done quickly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
These proceeds will be just proceeds sale of capital for tax reporting, when my capital said, basis in property, and then I'm selling it. If there's capital gain, that needs to be reported in my
Yes,
income tax.
yeah.
It's not an insurance payment or it's a capital sale.
It's a real estate transaction, just
I
like
would,
any other.
I would say, yes, you would have to report any capital gain that you have from the current laws. And also, I believe, if there are any Canadian citizens here, the law requires that we retain 20% of the proceeds until they, and forward those proceeds to the IRS, and then you have to submit a United States income tax return to get that money. 10%.
Further questions? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just wanted to know, you say the first rounds are going to be end of October?
Yeah.
Has any of the closing agreements gone out yet?
No, they will be going.
So it's not yet, but they will be going out?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just
We
got
just got
some of the
numbers
offer
today.
prices from the state, literally today. We haven't even gotten through them yet.
So you have an idea of what level or what?
Some of you we do, not all of you, because the numbers that we had, some people were still getting documentation, so the state couldn't give us that final figure right now. They were still providing, you were still providing documentation. We do have some figures on some of the properties tonight with them
I'm still debating on
that they want to offer.
And,
So-
and we're also working
could I
with
cover
3
it all?
different rounds, 3 different programs.
Okay.
So, like, we're talking about the program as a whole. There's 3.5 million in the first round, 26 substantially damaged properties. There's like 1.2 million in non-substantial properties, and another like 14, and then there's 3 in round 2. So there's 3 different actual grants, 3 different pots of money, actually, and then with the 25% from a different funding source. So it's very complicated and very confusing. For us it's not. We understand it because we've done all the work. But right now we're starting to get offers on the original substantially damaged properties. Those properties that were in the 100-year floodplain and had 50% more damage to their properties. That's what we're starting to see from the state.
So that's the stage 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, at the end of the meeting, if you want to come up and talk to us about your individual property and some of the things that you may need, we might have all the information here tonight to tell you what you need, but a lot of them we don't. Who's next?
Okay, I didn't think that the substantial and non-substantial played into it anymore. I thought that was all put in one bucket.
It is. It's separate grants for us, for our purposes only. They've compiled everything together. We thought it was going to be like a year behind each other, but it's not.
Okay, so even if you're non-substantial,
They've been approved.
you could be in that first bunch, second? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's all going to depend on the offer price when we receive them back from the state, and we
Okay.
can't anticipate when that'll be.
Ma'am?
These forms that we got at the beginning, are we supposed to fill these out, or are we going to receive other ones in the mail?
We wanted you to take them home. We asked that you sign for them so that we didn't have to mail you a copy. We just got them on Friday. For the folks that weren't able to attend tonight, we're going to mail those. Like I said earlier, please fill them out to the best of your ability. I understand it's problematic, but if you don't fill those out, you relinquish your 25% investment.
You can't fill them out tonight, we'll take them.
Yeah.
You want to give them to Lynn's?
Yeah.
Lynn's
That's why Lynn's
paperwork, and she's grabbing anything she can get.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned that earlier.
We mail them to Lynn, or, because I don't see an address on here.
We'll give you that.
Right behind me. Do we have it?
No,
No, we have my phone number, but not my address.
Lynn, what's the P.O. box for 217 Elizabethtown? P.O. Box 217. Mr. Trumbo?
Okay. A little humor to this issue. I was bitching about my taxes back in my home. And we had, I think, an update on 12, 13, 12, and then my taxes were low. So the assessor said to me, "It's Trumbo, you realize you have waterfront property?" And
Yes, yes, sir.
We can self-correct that one line item.
Yes, you can self-correct that or what it out.
We're gonna check it either way.
We're gonna fix it.
Yeah.
Who's Rose? Barbara?
So I understand the same bucket, whether you're substantial or half substantial, what have you. But if you're clean and you've made up your mind you want it, is that any way to expedite it? I mean, some of us aren't even living in the old house because it's 100% gone. Right. I don't need to wait till the time of my letter to make my
If
money.
we have the offer back from the state and it's clean, it's gonna be one of the first ones we can get off our plate. Absolutely. But Dan's reviewing those now. We're reviewing the offers. Dan's reviewing to see how clean they are, so to speak, and then we're gonna move forward with those. So absolutely. As long as the state has given us the authority to do that. Thanks. Yes, ma'am. No,
whoever you can get too fast.
whoever we get too fast. And say we have the okay for the state to go ahead and make that offer.
So it doesn't matter whether you're in round 1, round 2, round 3, or...
Not to us at all. No. Katie?
We're not like everybody else in one. Are you gonna tear my house down?
What's that?
Are you gonna tear my house down?
I can't guarantee that that's gonna happen. Your situation from what we're seeing now is the appraised value came in less than what the insurance was. So I can't guarantee that they're gonna allow us to do that under this program because we have to put in for reimbursement on the county level from FEMA to get reimbursed. So we're asked that question, we're asking for that approval to do that, and that they would repay us for our work to do that. Which brings me back to, we tore a home down recently in the town of Jay. It was considered an unsafe building structure. It wasn't part of the buyout property. It was flooded during Irene, but it was foreclosed on by the bank. That property to tear down cost us $14,000. Okay, it cost the taxpayers $14,000. Now we put that back onto the property owners be levied onto their taxes, but that doesn't guarantee that we're gonna get it, because if they don't have anything to pay on, they're gonna let it go, and it's gonna go to the auction block eventually. So we have asked permission to, there's a few properties that have, the appraisals came in less than what they got for flood insurance, but we don't have approval at this point. They're telling us no.
Insurance was covered because it wasn't a 100-year flood zone. So the ICC rider,
A lot of them have FCC riders, but not
I mean, as it is now, I dropped over $300,000. I'm not dropping any money. That house is robbed.
And eventually what would happen is that, you know, the county would deem it an unsafe structure, and we'd have to go and tear it down eventually, so it'd be an unsafe environment. We're trying to do it, but we're following the guidelines that they're giving to us, and the guidelines that say are if you receive from the National Flood Insurance Program more than the appraised value, then we can't give you anything more above that, because they consider it.
You don't want it, you just want it to tear down.
I understand that, but they, in the minds of the federal government, that is double-dipping, because they felt when they made you the offer, I know I include context, but when they made you the offer was for the property and possibly for demolition. Did it say anything in your? Okay. As of right now, they're telling us no. If we've asked the question, because there's a couple properties in that situation, we would love to be able to tear it down and have it be reimbursed by FEMA.
You can't take advantage of buyout, right? So they have this house and you don't know what he wants.
Right now, we do have those, like Randy said, we have those questions in there, we've asked them, we're waiting for final determination. They're leading us to believe at this time that that's the case, like Randy said, but until we get final determination made on every specific property, it can be difficult to give an answer.
As Dan had just alluded to, it wouldn't be part of the buyout property acquisition program, because they're actually buying you out. So at this point, they're telling us no, and right now they've come back with a number that's zero to us. But we're asking to be able to do that, because it's going to end up going back in your situation. Maybe it would come back to the town, and the town's going to need an unsafe building structure, and then everybody else is going to have to pay for it to tear it down. So we're hoping that they'll give us approval, and then they'll reimburse us for our efforts. And we'd love to tear it down at the same time everybody else is. We'd love to, but.
Also, they reevaluating the land so far as being under your flood zone, because then the insurance company would be liable to tear down an ICC right.
That the determinations now they're doing New York State now. They have come to my office a few times to go to different areas. They're doing research on all past floods in the town of Jay, in the town of Keene, and they're going to redo the flood zone. Right now, we don't have any indication what those are going to be. They've completed 2 states now, but they have not completed New York. So I don't know what those rules are going to be, or where the flood zones are going to be determined. That's yet to be determined, so I don't know. I'm sorry, I really wish I had more information. I just don't. Right now, we're asking to include those homes, and they're telling us no at this point. Further comments or questions? Again, hopefully we answered as many questions as we possibly can. We're moving as fast as we can. The state knows we're trying to move as fast as we can. If you have individual questions about your home, you can come up and see Mike or Lynn, Bill, or Dan, and we'll try and help you. But we are getting very close, and I applaud you for your patience. One thing that Lynn did say to me that she read in the paper yesterday, the town of Malone, or village of Malone, got their letter of intent for their flooded properties. They're 2.5 years away from taking their, so we're a lot closer than a lot of other communities. They just got the letter of intent. We're already past that stage. We're hoping we're the first community to be the first buyout from Irene.
I'd like to add to what Randy said a little bit. When the county came out with the information that we were going to ban the project in order to try to get the people their money as quickly as possible, my phone rang the next morning and it was from an adjoining what the hell are you doing to me, my people? Her constituents are going crazy because you guys are gonna go, buy those properties out, and now they wanna know why we aren't, when we're waiting for FEMA, so it is a good thing. I know it's been a long time, folks, and if I could just, talk about Linda Dawson, and Linda has done so much work with this project. Anybody who's got the chance to work with her or talk to her knows just how fantastic she is, and I really don't know what I would do without her. She's really a special individual and works really, really hard. So if you get a chance to tonight, thank her because she's done a lot of the legwork on this project, and I don't know where we'd be without her. So thank you.
So again, if you have any individual questions, please come up and ask us, and we'll try and answer them. If not, we will get you answers.